it is, why you're on this panel. Tell, for people who don't know.
Justify your existence.
Who is Tom?
What are you doing here?
Because clearly you're not a comedian, is what you're saying.
Well, the two first names are funny, but we go through.
Don, that joke was old in 1994.
And I keep bringing it home.
No, I mean, part of the reason for the popularity of the Transformers is that it's really hitting the perfect window of nostalgia. Of these were popular in the 80s. When people have the opportunity to be nostalgic is after they get out of college and enter the workforce and before they get married and have kids and start a family. That's when they have their spending, at its highest ability. Right, they have all their money, but that is when nostalgia strikes hardest too, when people want to go back and reconnect with what they were passionate about as a kid. With me, I never lost that. I collected the Shogun Warriors, the second they came out, and I never ever stopped. And I went to Japan 7 times looking for Japanese toy robots. And, in figuring out the scholarship, and this is all before Yahoo and eBay and internet auctions, when you can collect toys from any part of the globe with no advantage.
Where did you get your leads, if not, by eBay or like?
I went to Japan. I got faxed lists of Japanese toy stores, that I had translated to find directions for them. And there were 2 big conventions, in the mid '90s, and they still go on today. One Superfest and one is Wonderfest. And the owner of the store and I would go to Japan and track these stores, and it was a real exciting time because there was this huge interest in Japanese robot toys from the 70s. That's when the height of that nostalgia was. That window was there. And people were coming from all across the globe to go to these conventions. And it was this real international collecting community that was so vicious. It's like people would sneak into the convention hall while the dealers were arriving. And each lap around the museum floor would yield a different landscape, because new toys would be brought in from the parking lot, and people were trying to find the rarest toys for themselves. And I figured out, this was all sort of like archaeology, what the really rare toys were, and it's a slow process of this one isn't as rare as we thought. And there was one toy that was an enemy of a very popular robot from 1972 called Mazinger Z. Maybe a lot of people know this. And there was an enemy that appears in the first episode called Garada K7. And Garada K7 had a skull head and sickle horns. And they made a toy of it, or they made a prototype of it. And when you looked at it, you're like, toys, this isn't like now. Toys were squarely for kids in the 70s and the 80s. That changed, when nostalgia changed, toy collecting in the 90s. And people said, no, this is too scary, And so they produced it in really limited numbers. People didn't think it was produced until like a specimen showed up in 1999 and in a museum. And I looked for it for 13 years. I didn't see it.
This is like the holy grail. I mean, I know this. I love this story. I've heard. You've hunted this.
Everyone in Japan thought I was nuts. They thought I was like Captain Ahab. They were telling me that it didn't exist. And there was a store called, just the mythology of it, a store called Jabba's Bounty in Tokyo, which is a great name for a toy store.
Yeah.
But in the broken English of the toy dealers that I was talking to, there was a rumor that that store had one, but they didn't say, I think there's a Garada K7 at the store Jabba's Bounty. They said, I think Jabba has one. and he didn't, and he never did, and he was a really upfront guy. I have nothing but high praise to say about Jabba, the toy dealer. But then in 2006, a woman on the eastern border of Japan went to a flea market, and she found one. And the thing about this toy is it shares the same arms and legs as another toy. And so the name of toys is usually embossed on the foot, but if you're using the same molds for the legs, you're not going to be, one of the names is going to be wrong. So they just put the production company and the license holder in the toy company. So when it was labeled on Yahoo Japan, when this woman put it up, she mislabeled it. It was not properly labeled, and I knew that it was not going to be. I knew that this is always a possibility because of the uniqueness of the what was embossed on the foot, and I had that bookmarked. But still, it got 70 bids, and I did win it after looking for it for 13 years, and it cost me $15,500.
I want to bring up something. One of my favorite parts of this story is that
We don't just applauded a very, very sick man.
here's the thing. We are share his sickness. Yeah. One of the things, like, isn't this a humongous disgrace for the Japanese toy collecting community that American? I'm not kidding. That's part of this story, right? Like, everyone in Japan is really upset that an American has this toy.
Yes. And part of the reason was that I was able to get it is the account that I was using to do the bidding only had one feedback on it. So when people were bidding against me, and Yahoo Japan is not like eBay. It's much more strenuous, and because if there was a bid within the last 5 minutes, they add 5 minutes. So there's no sniping the way that there is on eBay here. So I put my bid in with 5 minutes left, but the bidding kept going for another hour of people bidding me up. Mm-hmm. And I just put in one bid, my max bid, that's it. And I was just shy of like a few hundred yen. And the person gave up because they assumed, after bidding against me for an hour and failing, that I was a shill bidder and not legit. So they thought it was going to be relisted. So I'm sure that worked in my favor.
Wow.
Nice. Are you allowed back in Japan after that?
No, there's two others. One's in a museum, one's in a private collection in Osaka.
Wow.
And yours in a safe deposit box.
Yeah.
No, that's
You have the key.
No, that's the height of collecting, really.
Yeah.
It's like you were able, your whole life there was this one thing, and you were able to try, and it's just a toy. There's a lot of people who be like, "I'm sorry, you just spent what on hunt?"
When I finally got, people, it's no letdown at all. It's not the thrill of the hunt. I have it, and I'm happy that I have it every day. And when I got the box and I put it on the table in front of me, and I looked it dead in the eye, I said, "You didn't beat me."